I just want to give you a quick talk. It's not going to have anything to do with how to make yourself paint better or how to make yourself play better. I'm going to try to talk to you about how to make yourself have a bit more fun in your miniatures hobby. For me, I'm not a super competitive person. And I'm not a great painter. I'm an okay painter, but I'm not a great painter. So for me, the interest is in some of the storytelling and what's going on in the background. When Games Workshop came out with this 6th edition and talked about forging a narrative, a lot of people, made fun. But I was mostly on board. And I've been enjoying it more and more. A big portion in my mind for miniatures in forging the narrative is personalizing your miniatures. Let me step back a bit. In role-playing games, it's all about personalization because you are playing a single character, and it's all about how that character plays and your relationship with the character and the character's relationship with you. Go to any gaming convention and see somebody who you think might be a role-playing character, strike up a conversation, ask about what they play. You will begin to get the story of their character's life 9 times out of 10. At Gen Con, the last, 10 times I've been there, I have seen companies selling t-shirts that just say, "Don't tell me about your character." Because there are people out there who don't want to go that direction. They don't want to be personalized. They want to play a game and be done with it and not think too much about it and have a good time. There's nothing wrong with that. But then there are the people who go the other direction. Usually in miniatures, it's not looked as being very personalized because you usually have between maybe like as many as 5 or as possibly as many as 200 figures on the table. So you can't possibly name all of them. This is Bob. This is Steve, this is Terry, that's Randy. But, in my mind, you can name the special ones. You can name the special characters, the heroes, the HQ units, whatever you want to do. And I personally think you should. I think it makes the game more fun. Guys that I have played against over and over again in my local area, mainly 40K, they've gotten to know some of my figures and they know them by their names and they know, when they see that guy on the table, they at least know the figure. I may have changed the stats a little bit. I may have given him a different kind of gun or given him a different type of magic item or whatever the deal might be, because that's what happens when you list build. But when you start to really invest yourself in specific figures and kind of get into their story, even a little bit, you don't have to get weird with it. It really becomes, I think, a little bit more fun. It becomes a little bit more interesting. You see this online. You see this from different people. Mini Wargaming Dave, by the way, he's got his Defiler, whose name is Deffy. And Deffy has been in I don't know how many different Mini Wargaming videos that I've seen. Joey Berry, she's got a Malifaux figure that she's had several conversations with. They're admittedly one-sided conversations, but still. I've got here a selection of 4 different guys from my Chaos Space Marines army from Warhammer 40,000 that are notable in some fashion. I'm going to try to go through them real quick. In my mind, they don't even have to be named. You don't have to sit down and say, hey, I'm going to name this guy and this is his little story or anything like that. Sometimes just in the fact that you play, eventually either a nickname starts to happen for that character or something that it did, becomes something. This is a normal Chaos Space Marine. He is painted Black Legion, and he's got a melt-a-gun. In 5th edition, there was a rule, and I think it's still going on in 6th edition, although it hasn't come up yet. In 5th edition, there was a rule called Tank Shock. I was playing against an Imperial Guard player, a friend of mine, and it was towards the end of the game, he was taking his Chimera and deciding to run it into my group of guys. Now, when you do that, you don't actually run guys over. What happens is that you kind of scare them, hence the shock part, and you get them to run off the board. You get them to break morale, in theory. However, if you have a figure that can harm that vehicle, they can do something called Death or Glory. The name is a bit of a foreshadowing, actually. His Chimera drove through my group of guys, and this particular figure, who at the time was unpainted as of yet, with his melt-a-gun, destroyed the Chimera in one shot. Unfortunately, when it blew up, it took him out as well. So what I did was I put a little trophy on his backpack. He's got a spike with a skull on it, and that's worked out really well for him and me keeping track of him and remembering that game. And I've not come up with a name for him, but that's the guy. I also have this guy. He was a find at Adepticon. He's a Plague Marine. He's one of the old school Plague Marines. A pistol and a bolt gun, kind of a kimbo there. You can kind of see that. He's grungy. I mean, he's a plague marine. He should be grungy. It makes sense. But this model, like I got him home, and I found him in a bits bin, you know, for $2-3 or whatever. And he was covered in just a terrible, horrible paint job that someone had put on, I think, with a sponge. I mean, it was thick and it was gross. And I was looking at him and I thought to myself, you know what? This guy could easily just look like he was moldy if I just primed over and just started painting directly on top, because he's so bumpy with so much weird paint and everything like that. So this figure is now known as Dirty Dick. Another one of my favorite models, and probably one of my favorite models in the entire Games Workshop line, is this one. This is I believe he's called a Nergal Chaos Lord. He's a single frame plastic miniature that Games Workshop put out a couple of years ago. And I swear, if you look at the reboot to White Dwarf, since it rebooted, every single issue since that magazine restarted, there's at least one of these in there. A lot of time it's in a John Blanche article, but just if you look in there, somebody has repainted, modified, changed this model. I've not done a ton to this model. I wanted to use him for 40K and not for fantasy, so I gave him a backpack, you know, the normal kind of chaos backpack, and I put a pistol on his hip. And other than that, he's just a great figure. And this is Old Drippy, because he's got, you can kind of see there, he's got the drippiness going on and everything. He's just a great figure, and I've used him in some amazing battles before. And as soon as people that I know see him out on the table, they're like, oh, Old Drippy, you know, and I don't know, it's just a lot of fun. It adds something to the game. And last but not least, out of my current Chaos Army, is a guy who I made up a name for him and I can't even pronounce it. It's Avunculus Tituculus, which is fake Latin, basically for Uncle Tickles. He's got dual lightning claws, and it's Tickles time whenever he comes out on the table, and he's a lot of fun. And I loved painting him. I spent a long time working on this guy, and he turned out really well. Anytime I bring him out on the board, guys that I play against frequently, or even if I've never played against this person before, I explain to him, like, well, everybody calls him, you know, Uncle Tickles. And if you're at the shop and you're playing somebody you've never played before, and then guys you know are there watching the game, or they just happen to be in the shop, they'll be like, oh, Uncle Tickles. And it builds a storyline for the guy. It builds, I don't want to say affection. It doesn't build affection for a plastic model. Fondness, maybe, we could say that. But it's something that makes the game, at least for me, and I think it ought to for everybody, makes the game a little bit more interesting, a little bit more personalized. Putting a lot of time into these models, sitting in your basement or your bedroom or wherever, and putting these guys together and painting them and airbrushing them and getting your skills better and learning more, that's the big portion of the hobby for me, and I think it is for a lot of people as well. And if you don't, honestly, we're playing with toys. I mean, I'm a grown man, I'm a grown-ass man. I'm playing with toys. I'm having a good time, and I'm staying off the streets. So you might as well make the vroom vroom noises when you move your tanks, and the pew 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 when the guns go off and you start firing from one squad to the next. Why not? It's a lot of fun. So Personalize, think about that. It's a great time when you're playing unpainted miniatures to start thinking about, like, that guy did really good in this game, so I'm going to give him a little extra love when it comes time to painting him, or I'm going to put an extra trophy on his backpack, or whatever you're going to do. I think it's what adds a lot more enjoyment to the game, and there's a lot of time that you spend, you know, frequently in solace in your basement painting, and when you get out to play and there's a storyline, you don't have to make up a storyline like, well, this guy forded the river such and such and whatever. I'm just saying, this one time he took on an entire squad by himself and it was awesome. That's the story you're looking for.